directions that lie there in that old curiosity shop.
Well, thrifting fans, take a look at this snag. I bought this today in a thrift shop. It's a big 16-inch General Electric oscillating fan. Now, I've had this fan before in a small desktop size. And when I researched it at that time, it was, if I remember correctly, it's a model that came out in the late 1930s, 36, 37, 38. I guess that's mid 30s, something like that. I haven't looked anything up on this. This might be the biggest, this big 16-inch, yeah, this might be the biggest one they made, I'm not sure. Now this fan, we're gonna plug it in a minute, but look how Art Deco the cage is on the front. Most of the time when you find these, boy, they're in pretty rotten condition after all these years. The ladder back chair, the Windsor chair, is making it difficult to see how neat the cage is on it. But what I was gonna tell you is, these always need some restoration, and I did plug it in the store. Now the oscillator is a little wonky, so I'm gonna have to get in there. It may just need to be cleaned and oiled. So I can get in there and do that. Someone at some point really did some restoration work on this, and there is some repainting involved here, but it was done quite a while ago and they did a really good job. Here's the original information there, GE. And then we have 3 speeds here, which is nice. There's a brand new cord on it. So, oh, this is fantastic. And I'll probably be using this bad boy out here on the porch this summer. We'll see. But I paid under $50 for it. It's a fan that's worth well over $100. These blades might have originally just been, they might not have been black. I've seen examples of this, and the blades are either they're like a chrome or an aluminum. But it's fine with me that these are black. I think it looks really stunning. And this is a thing where some restoration on an old electric fan like this doesn't necessarily hurt the value the way, refinishing furniture oftentimes does. So let's turn it on and get it blowing, and then I don't think it's oscillating. That's low. It is oscillating, okay. I monkeyed with it a little bit. Now there's a little bit of a rattle. That rattle is coming from something loose in the cage, but it's a pretty quiet sounding fan. Listen to that. I guess I better stop running my lips and you can listen to it. All right, air conditioning the Great Depression way. Now they do make noise, of course. You remember these old fans. Let's try it. That's 2. And this is 3. Wow. Sounds good. Can you believe it? Late 30s. Has a Deco influence there to the cage. And I love the GE tag on the front. All right, let's turn it off. And I love the chicken head knob there, what's called a chicken head knob. In great working condition like that, a fan of that age, and it's a desirable fan, and it's worth quite a bit more than what I paid for it. So that's going to be living out here on the porch. And I still am going to tell you more about these logs over here. I've got exciting news about those. You know, we talked about them before, but I'll come back again to that. So got that fan, and then you remember I showed you this one the other day as well, which is much earlier. We're going back to the early to mid 20s on this one. It's about 10 years difference between that fan and this fan over here. So I'm going to be all set. Come on, June and July, I'm ready for you. Now let's go do something else. I'm back in the basement again to give you an update on these shades. Now, I appreciate everybody's comments. I asked you for your comments and you gave them to me, and I wanted you to. I enjoyed reading what everybody had to say. And if you remember from yesterday, for some reason I had my doubts on these. But I have changed my mind. Instead of leaning towards maybe they're not old and there's some 90s Tuscan kitchen thing, I really am in agreement with a lot of folks that this is the legitimate thing, and I'm going to tell you why. Several people chimed in, and they were very articulate about what they thought, and they gave their reasons. And what a lot of folks said to me in the comment section was that the relief on these shades is so well done. It's very well pronounced. Most of the newer items that you would see in shades would not have that. They wouldn't have that quality. I don't know how well you can see. I'm trying to get it to focus for you. It also, a couple other folks said it reminded them of the custard glass by Northwood. And boy, it sure does. Let me back up again. And kind of go down here. Now, the fixture isn't wired, so I can't plug it in and let you see it lit up. But give you a better look at the detail of the relief and the shading in there, this sort of cinnamon shading. I really think that's the indication that these are old shades. Okay, let's take a break for a moment and look at an original catalog page by the Imperial Glass Company. Now you can see here the Imperial Nuart, N-U-A-R-T, shades. Now these particular shades, they're announcing this as a Venetian satin, which is sort of a sandblasted effect or frosted effect on the shades. Now, I don't believe that my shades, in fact, I'm certain that they're not Nuart because they're not signed Nuart. But let's zoom in on the shade at the bottom right. Aha, very similar. So the style is right. And as I said, Nuart shades were introduced in 1912. So it fits with the sort of tail end of the arts and crafts era. And you definitely see the similarities. They do not give the measurements on this page. But let's keep looking. I've got another surprise for you. Now, I don't know anything about this particular website, but it is called vintagelights.com. And I just happened to be fishing around, and I went to their page where they were advertising arts and crafts era lighting, and look what we found. Now, once again, we'll zoom in on this one. Again, very similar. The shape is very much like the shades that I've got. The colors are the same, but maybe in reverse. And the dimensions are the same. Take a look at that. 5 inches tall, and that's exactly the height of the shades that I've got. Now, does that prove anything? No, but it certainly is pointing in the direction that we've got 3 very nice, desirable, antique light shades. The only exception that I will take on this web page is they are referring to this as a vintage antique. And, well, we won't get started on that, right? It's either vintage or it's antique, but I don't think it's a vintage antique. I know. I'm not going to start that again. But anyway, great news. I think I've got 3 antique shades. I'm so excited. And I do want to say now, there were some folks who said, those shades are too big. Well, I want to show you so that you can get a better idea. Now, if I grab this shade right here, now I know these are old. I have these in a catalog, and these do go back to sort of 1915 to 1920. So these are earlier shades. And I want you to see that they're just as long as these, just as tall. So there's no problem with the length of the shade. It's authentic for these earlier shades to be this tall. Remember, those old Victorian houses had taller ceilings. Now, the shades do shrink in size as we get into the 20s and definitely the 30s. And we can really see that here when we compare a 1930s shade with the old sort of 1915 era shade. These are not quite as tall, and that also helps you with ceiling height. I mean, even in my little 1925 house here, I've got 8-foot ceilings, not 9, not 10. And so you can't really have, back up again. For instance, in my house, people were saying to me, where are you going to use this? Well, I can't use it. The only place it could be used is over the dining room table. And I've already got a fixture, and I've already told you about it, and you've already seen it. That's going over the dining room table. This can't hang anywhere else in the house because you'd bang your face on it. It would be too low. Now here's a fixture from the 1920s, and you'll see again, they become flush mounted to the ceiling. So this allows for the lower ceiling heights of that era. Look how pretty that'll be when it's lit. So that hangs down very low. This one can easily be hung on an 8-foot ceiling, and you're not going to bang your head on it. So the shades get smaller as ceiling heights diminish. And so I think I've come to the conclusion that I was fortunate enough. Oh, they don't glow. There's no uranium. I threw a black light on it, which that doesn't mean anything. Just means that there's no uranium in them. If there were, that would be a really good indication that they're from the, about 1920. But just because there's no uranium in them, no uranium in them does not mean that they're not old shades. So I think they are. I also want to thank, hold on for a second, because Urban Ghost Hunter was viewing and got all excited when, I don't know if it's he, she, they, I'm not sure who it is, Urban Ghost Hunter, but you know who you are. When you saw this shade, you identified it for me, and I appreciate that a lot because I never really paid, I knew it was a good one, and this one too. But I've got so much stuff, I never really had a chance to examine it. And you identified it as an imperial shade, which is called the, it's the iridescent and shell. Is it half shell or something shell? And you're right, it sure is. And I was able to take a really close look. Now, you're not going to be able to see it, but these shades are signed Nuart, and that's N-U-A-R-T. It's a line, mostly glass shades, but vases as well, that Imperial put out they started making them sometime around 1912. Coral shell marigold is what it is. So thank you to Urban Ghost Hunter for telling me that, because I really just didn't pay a whole lot of attention to it. You will see, if you look very closely, that they are signed New Art. And I'll insert I'll try to see if I can find it on here. It's right there. Can you barely see the word art? A-R-T. You can just see the tail end of it. Boy, I would love to get it to where. Let's bring it up here and see if you can see a bit of it, a little bit more of it. It's really hard to find to be able to see it, but let me get it up here. And I'm hoping it will. Am I blinding you with the light? I think I'm blinding you. All right, that's not doing what I wanted it to do, but it's embossed under there and it's very hard to pick it up. Wait a minute, are we getting it? You got to get it just right. I think you, when I had it down on the floor, you could barely see. Okay, that's the best I'm going to be able to do. But I believe you can see N-U-A-R-T, New Art. Now that's a trademark by Imperial Glass. And so these go back to 1912, which is when they started making these. And this one is signed New Art as well. All right, what does that mean? Well, they're desirable. They're good shades. And I'm going to probably be selling them because I only have one of each. And these really belong on fixtures that need 2 or 3 shades. And somebody has one where, you know, Uncle Henry got the ladder out and broke one of the shades and they need a replacement. So I'll end up selling them. I got rejuvenated going through all of my lighting down here. So I'm going to be selling a lot of the shades. The odds and ends of shades that I don't really need. So thank you for the help on that. Was it Urban Ghost Hunter? What was it? I forget. I already went off. I got off my page. I can't remember. And yep, I am thinking here we got some great old early 1920s artsy craftsy type shades, and I'm thrilled with them. Thanks everybody for your input. I really appreciate it.
Was in the year of '89 on that old Chicago line when the winter wind was blowing the grill. The rails were froze, the wheels were cold, and then the air brakes wouldn't hold, and number 9 came roaring down the hill. Oh, the runaway train come down the track and she flew. The runaway train came down the track and she flew. The runaway train came down the track and